everybody. Welcome to Bean to Barstool Bite Sized. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me this morning. In this Bite Sized, we are looking back at one of the first episodes where I ever really did a deep dive on pairing beer and chocolate. So for the next few minutes, sit back, listen as I reflect on one of my favorite activities, pairing beer and chocolate. As always, please let me know about your own pairing experiences. I feel like in the tasting world, we all get to live vicariously through each other, so I always love hearing about the things that you've been tasting, things you've been pairing. So spend a few minutes with me as we talk about pairing beer and chocolate. Pairing beer and chocolate is one of my favorite things to do. It's a rich sensory experience that allows me to travel without leaving home, to journey through my own memories, to learn more about my own senses and about these two artisan products I love so much that are constantly revealing themselves in new ways. It can be a centering experience if I'm alone, and a communal experience if I'm with friends or family. Pairing beer and chocolate brings me peace, and it brings me happiness. But it's not an effortless endeavor. Beer and chocolate are both highly nuanced and highly variable foods, and each individual example can be quite complex, showcasing multiple textures, tastes, aromas, and flavors. Bringing them together compounds those complexities, and finding truly great beer and chocolate pairings can take a bit more work than other beer pairing categories, making the process both more frustrating and more rewarding. I enjoy the practice of pairing even when the pairings themselves don't end up being stellar, but finding those perfect pairings where my senses just sing is what I hope for every time I sit down with these two beautiful indulgences. Pairing beer and chocolate is a different experience from pairing beer with a meal. Beer is, in my opinion, the most versatile pairing beverage in the world. When planning for a meal pairing, there are general guidelines to work with, and often selecting a beer means casting a wide net with an option that will get along well with everything on the table. Molecular pairings, where a single beer is paired with a single dish, are a ton of fun, and I've led many of them professionally and found so many dazzling individual combinations, but that's not really how we eat in real life. We have multiple foods on our plates at one time, and selecting a practical pairing means finding a beer that can shake hands with all of those foods, even if it doesn't move in for a hug with any of them. Pairing with chocolate, though, is different. When you're joining beer and chocolate, you aren't pairing a meal, you're pairing a moment, an individual flavor moment. And that means we get as molecular as we can, allowing our two dance partners to move in close, to lean on each other, to embrace. We're not looking for handshakes here. We're looking for love, and playing matchmaker between beer and chocolate is trickier than it is with most other foods. Chocolate bars are a solid, and if the chocolate maker has properly tempered the chocolate, they'll stay that way until they're in your mouth. Cheap chocolate candy might melt on your fingers, but well-made craft chocolate melts just a few degrees below our body temperature. This allows for that beautiful slow melt we experience when we put a piece of bean-to-bar chocolate on our tongues, and it slowly begins to reveal its secret as it transitions from solid to liquid. This creates a problem when we want to pair it with a cold liquid like beer. The beer we hope will reveal new secrets in the depths of our chocolate can instead freeze it in place in their crystalline cage. In most beer and food pairings, I walk my participants through tasting the beer first and then pairing it with food. With chocolate, it's important to reverse this. We want to give chocolate the time it needs to melt before we introduce our beer. Put a small piece of chocolate in your mouth and let it melt. Take your time with this. You can move it over the surfaces of your tongue and lightly break it up with your teeth, but you need to give it time to really melt before moving on. As it melts, its aromas will be volatilized and will travel up your retronasal passageways to your olfactory bulb, and in combination with the basic tastes you're detecting on your tongue, will create the full perception of flavor. After the chocolate has fully melted, take a very small sip of beer. You don't want to take a large drink, just an introduction of flavor. In a typical beer and food pairing, beyond aroma, taste, and flavor combinations, you're looking for the mouthfeel elements of the beer to interact with the textures of the food. For example, carbonation can lift fatty food textures off the tongue and refresh the palate. In the case of chocolate, however, that component isn't really as relevant. The textures of beer and chocolate can be lovely together, but you're really focusing on aroma, taste, and flavor, so you don't need much of the beer in your mouth. Even after it's melted, chocolate can quickly become overwhelmed, so you can experiment with this till you're finding a good balance of beer and chocolate. I sometimes find it helpful to have a cup of hot water on hand to assist with melting the chocolate on my tongue before taking a sip of beer. I'll put the chocolate in my mouth and take a small sip of hot water to encourage it to melt. Again, take your time. Some flavors might lean into each other, some might tug against each other, some might clash, and some might come together to create something wholly new. Just as with individual tastings, I find it helpful to set the scene with pleasant music, good lighting, and a comfortable place to sit. I have my notebook on hand, sometimes my trusty camera, and enough time to not feel rushed. And just as with tastings, I'm engaging all my senses throughout the process, as well as remaining open to memory, emotion, and imagination. We're never just tasting. With my eyes, I'm appreciating the artwork of the beer labels and chocolate wrappers and the appearance of each as I pour the beers and unwrap the bars, as well as enjoying the room or setting around me. I might snap a few photos if the lighting is right, which can also help to remind me that this moment itself will soon be a memory. With my ears, I'm letting the music set the mood and talking with my wife and daughter or others if they're doing this with me, casually exchanging tasting notes, laughing, staying silent for stretches of time, which is its own kind of auditory communion. With my nose and mouth and fingers, I'm smelling and tasting and feeling the beer and chocolate, exploring the map of flavors they are drawing and shaping together. And I engage my eyes and hands again as I jot down notes and take photos. This is a beautiful way to pass an afternoon.